Well, welcome everyone to our first Scam Chat Wednesday series in August. Please type in the chat your first name and what city you're zooming in from. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Scam Chat Wednesday in August. I'm Sarita Cardozo and I'll be your host today. I'm a volunteer with AARP California. I also serve as a fraud fighter with the AARP California Fraud Watch Network. And we're so glad that you could join us today. Before we jump in, we ask everyone to observe the following meeting agreements so everyone can have a good experience. Please keep yourself on mute. Let's not have distracting background noises. Use the chat to raise questions, to add comments, and assume everyone's good intentions using respectful language and tone. And please note, if your camera is on, we can see what's happening in your background. This meeting is being recorded so that those who can't be with us today can still view the program at a later time on our AARP YouTube channel. If you get a message saying that you're being recorded, please click OK when it appears on your screen. Now, if you're not familiar, the AARP Fraud Watch Network is a free fraud prevention and education resource available to anyone. Our network is all about helping communities avoid fraud and scams through information, education, resources, and events. Well, thank you so much for joining us for our first conversation in a series of weekly interactive fraud prevention and education conversations that we are co-hosting throughout August with our friends at the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation. I hope you'll make this an interactive conversation by sharing your comments, your experiences, thoughts, and by asking your questions. And as always, we have set aside time at the end of today's presentations to answer your questions. Remember to put your questions and comments in the chat. Today, we are going to be talking about data breaches, identity theft, and how to stay protected from them. But before I introduce our guests for today's conversation from the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation and the FBI, let me first share a few housekeeping items. For audio purposes, please keep yourself on mute until you're invited to unmute yourself. To ask a question, please type your question in the chat. And during our Q&A session, I will invite you to unmute yourself and come on live to ask your question. If you're not comfortable, no worries. If you don't want to be on camera, we can do it for you. And lastly, today you will hear from our speakers from the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation and the FBI. However, please note that the opinions expressed in the presentations by our speakers and on their slides are solely those of the presenters and do not necessarily represent the views of their agencies. The information is solely for educational purposes only. All right, and with that, let's get started. It seems like we are constantly hearing reports about incidents of data breaches that expose our personal information. Whether it's AT&T, Bank of America, or Ticketmaster. In fact, just last week, I got a letter from Ticketmaster saying that my data was out there somewhere and they had been breached. These breaches put us at risk of identity theft, and all of them are different, and many are becoming more inventive and sophisticated. So let's meet our first guest to help us understand more about this issue. I would like to welcome Sally Westlake with the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation. Hello and welcome, Sally.
Good morning, Sarita. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. So, folks, a little bit of background about Sally. She's an outreach specialist with the DFPI. She provides presentations throughout the state on recognizing the warning signs of financial frauds and scams. She also provides tools to help prevent people falling victim to fraud. And she is responsible for coordinating outreach programs, developing partnerships with community-based organizations, and educating the most vulnerable in our communities. Her focus is on promoting financial literacy and awareness of financial risks in the marketplace. So welcome again, Sally, and let's get into some questions to help us understand data breaches and how your agency can help keep us protected. So tell us a little more about the DFPI and who are some of the licenses you regulate and oversee.
Okay, well, again, thank you for inviting us to be here. We're always happy to participate with AARP for Scam Chat Wednesdays. So again, the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, we protect California consumers and businesses by overseeing a variety of financial services, products, and professionals. And we serve the state by enforcing the state's financial service laws and providing resources to Californians to help them make informed financial decisions and help consumers protect their personal finances from fraud. Now, we do this through education and providing resources to prevent them from potential fraud, scams, and abuse. So some of the licensees we regulate and oversee, well, we're committed to maintaining a fair and healthy and trusted financial services marketplace for all Californians. So our licensees include California Chartered Banks and Credit Unions, residential mortgage loan originators and servicers, California finance lenders, PACE administrators, your escrow agents, payday loans, money transmitters, franchises, debt collectors, credit reporting agencies, as well as credit repair agencies, and many more. Now, you can find a complete list. It's on our website at dfpi.ca.gov. You can check their license status or, and also to file a complaint. You can do that on our website. But if you have any questions, please feel free to give us a call at 866-275-2677. Now, I will go ahead and put in all the resource information in the chat towards the end.
Thank you, Sally. And I see we have people from all over the country joining us today. So this is a very important topic that we have over here. Sally, could you talk a little bit about what is identity theft?
Great. Identity theft is a serious crime. Identity theft happens when someone uses your information without your permission. It can be what kind of information? Well, it can be your name, your address, your social security number, your date of birth, or your account numbers for your credit card, your bank accounts, or even medical insurance. Now, this is also called personal identifying information, or PII. Now, a thief can steal your personal information by in person or online. They might steal your garbage or mail to get your account numbers. They might steal your information from a business or medical office. They might steal your wallet or your purse to get the information, or they could trick you into sending information about you through email or even text.
That's really scary to think of the many ways they can get your information. Yep.
Yes.
So what can a thief do with all this information?
Well, an identity thief, they can buy things with your credit cards or even get new credit cards. A thief can open a phone account, electricity, gas, any of those accounts. They can even steal your tax refund or even get medical care. And they can even pretend to be you if they're arrested.
Wow, that's really disturbing.
Yeah.
So why should you care if someone steals your information? All right, so they've got my information out there and they're pretending to be me, but why is that important? Could you just share a little bit?
Sure. I mean, a thief can clearly cause all kinds of trouble for you. The bottom line is this. You're going to be responsible for whatever the thief does while using your personal information. This is true even if you don't know about the bills. One example of an identity theft scenario is when a thief might get a credit card using your name. Then he changes the address. The bill goes to him, but he never pays them. Well, that means the credit card company thinks you're not paying your bills, and this is going to hurt your credit.
Yes, that's pretty bad. That's really bad. So,
Mhm.
how would you know if someone has stolen your identity?
Well, sometimes you can tell if your identity has been stolen. Some ways that you can tell is first you need to read your bills. Do you see any charges for things you did not buy? Watch your bank account statement. Do you see withdrawals you didn't make? Are there changes you didn't expect? Check your mail. Did you stop getting a bill? Or did you start getting a new bill that you didn't know about? Get your credit report. Are there accounts or other information you do not recognize? Now, if you answered yes to any of these questions, someone might have stolen your identity. If so, you must act fast to limit the damage the thief can cause.
And how would I get my credit reports?
So, one way to protect your personal information is to learn what information is in your credit report. Now, you can get your report each year for free. Federal law says that you can get one report a year from each of the three major credit reporting companies, which is Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. The one company the federal government has authorized for your annual free report is Annual Credit Report. And the website is www.annualcreditreport.com. Now, during COVID, the government authorized free credit reports once a week. And they actually have now extended that law, allowing anyone to get a free weekly credit report. Now, do you need to get a credit report once a week? Probably not for the most of us. Now, just know that a supposedly free report from anywhere else may have strings attached. They might maybe offer a credit reporting service or something else you wind up paying for. So make sure you go to the official website. You can also call the annual credit report at 1-877-322-8228. You get an automated system. You give them information about yourself, including your social security number, and then pick which company you want to report from. Then they're going to mail the report to you, and you should get it within about 2-3 weeks after your call. You can get your report online. Again, I'll go ahead and put in the phone number and the website later on in chat. If you go online to get your free credit report, you just print it out at home. Now, if you think your identity has been stolen or you see something in your credit report, then you need to call each of the credit reporting agencies to file a fraud alert. Again, I'll go ahead and give you the phone number for each of the three credit reporting agencies, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, in the chat later.
Thank you, Sally. And yes, a lot of people want to have those numbers and website addresses. So people will be putting those in the chat later on. Can you speak a little bit about how we can protect ourselves from identity theft? Is it even possible at this stage?
Yeah, well, you can protect your personal information and therefore lowering your risk from becoming a victim of identity theft. So think of how you use your personal information. Protect your information at home, when you shop, whether in store, in person, or online, and especially when you use your computer. So maybe consider not answering your phone when you don't know who is on the other end of that phone call, or it's coming from a number that's not in your contact list. Let it just go into voicemail. Consider when you're on the phone, what information should they already have about you? Yes, you may need to verify who you are, but you shouldn't have to provide your full social security number, for example. They should have that basic information. Now, you should remember, never click on a link from a text message or in an email or a call, the numbers that's listed on the message that was coming from somebody that was not expected. Instead, go to the source. Verify the number before ever calling that number. Make sure you really are calling, let's say, Wells Fargo customer service and not the number that's in the text or in that email. You should also consider investing in a shredder. Shred all mail, any papers with personal information on it. And remember to keep your financial records, your social security card, and health information in a safe place. And take out your mail out of your mailbox every day. Consider also remember to use passwords that are hard for someone to guess. Remember, the longer the password, the better. You might want to use a paraphrase. When you get emails or other messages that ask for personal information, don't respond. Delete them and move on. Remember, delete, delete. Do not give your personal information to someone who calls you or emails you. Not ever. Another way to protect yourself from identity theft is to freeze your credit. If you are done accessing credit, you are not going to buy a house, you are not going to get another car or co-sign a loan for somebody, you're pretty much done. You've got your accounts already set up and you have your loans, then you may want to consider freezing your credit. More information about that is available also on our website at the FPI, as well as in our brochure, Protect Yourself from Fraud. That's available. We can mail you a hard copy, or you can read about it on PDF form on our website. And finally, look for the S in HTTP in the web address when you're shopping. That means you're on a secure website. Make sure that you typed in the address correctly. Lots of copycat sites and fraud sites use a character like a period or a dash in between the correct words to make it look like you're actually going to the real site when you're not.
Thank you, Sally. That is wonderful, wonderful advice. You know, another tip that I would like to share is I also encourage people to have a little script to say no when somebody unknown picks up. And a lot of people just pick up the phone and want to keep talking to the people. But if they have a little script down there that says, sorry, not today, thank you for calling, you know, just hang up the phone, including write the words, hang up the phone. I think that that's helpful as well.
That's right.
So, yeah. So if someone steals your identity, what should you do? Is there anything we can do?
Yes, definitely. Now, if someone has stolen your identity, act fast. Fast action can actually help reduce the damage an identity thief can cause. So there's 3 steps that you want to take immediately. Number 1, you want to place a fraud alert on your credit reports. If you call one of the 3 credit reporting agencies and it's a fraud alert, they're technically supposed to alert and notify the other 2. And then they're going to send you a copy of your report from that one that you reported the fraud alert on. But I would just go ahead and call all 3 of the major credit reporting agencies and place a fraud alert and obtain your free copy of your report. Number 2 is, again, you need to order copies of your credit reports. So again, call the other 2 credit reporting agencies and get your credit report. And then if you've been the victim of identity theft, again, your credit report is free. But remember, right now, it's free once a week anyways, but you want to keep that in mind. And number 3, you want to create an identity theft report. Now, this report is made up from information you give the government and the police. So it's a statement of what actually happened and what occurred. So the first step is the report. You're going to combine your complaint to the FTC. So you're going to call or go on FTC's website, and then your complaint also goes to the police. So first one, complaint to the FTC. The number is 877-438-4338, or you can go to www.identitytheft.gov. So you start there, and then it's going to give you steps on what you need to do to fill out the report. And then you're going to end up with something called an identity theft affidavit, which simply means that you swear everything in the document that you reported to the FTC is true. You're going to print that out and keep this affidavit. Then you're going to take that with you to the police, to your local law enforcement. And then you're going to file a police report and make sure you get a copy of the police report or at least a number of the police report. So your FTC report combined with the police report is your identity theft report. Keep this safe. You're going to need to use it to help prove that the thieves' bills aren't yours. So if you ever have to recover from identity theft, here's something we hear from people who've been through it. You're going to have to end up making a lot of calls, write lots of letters to recover from identity theft. So it's a good idea to keep copies of every letter you get or send, all your alerts, your credit reports, and other forms. Keep a list of all the phone calls that you get and that you might make to the credit reporting agencies and other businesses that you report the fraud to. You may need to refer to your papers and send copies to prove that you're not the thief and that you have corrected your accounts. Again, if you need help reporting identity theft, go to identitytheft.gov for more information.
Thank you, Sally. That's wonderful to know and scary at the same time to have to go through that process. So how can Californians contact the DFPI for assistance?
I hope we can all think about being careful with your personal information, and I hope none of us ever needs the information on how to recover from identity theft, but it doesn't hurt for us to be prepared. But if you would like to check the license status of any of our licensees, you can visit our website at dfpa.ca.gov, or if you need to file a complaint. Now, if you have any questions, you can call us at 866-275-2677. Or if you'd like a presentation from our organization, you can email us at outreach@dfpi.ca.gov. Now, we have a wealth of resources available to our consumers, including, like I mentioned, Protect Yourself from Fraud booklets. Also, we have a crypto scam tracker available on our website. You can also subscribe to our monthly newsletter with updates of our latest events and what's happening in the financial services industry. You can also follow us on social media to get the latest news.
Thank you so much, Sally. And folks, we're going to be posting all these links and telephone numbers in the chat later on. So really appreciate you providing so much advice and answers to our questions, Sally. Thank you so much. And now we'll move on to Ken Kun, who is our next speaker. It's my great pleasure to welcome our second special guest to help us understand and avoid data breaches and identity theft. FBI Special Agent Ken Kun, welcome. Welcome to being here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
A little bit about Special Agent Kun. He serves in the Federal Bureau of Investigation, San Francisco Field Office, and he's responsible for the investigation of complex financial crimes. He also works with a special focus on frauds and swindles that target the elderly, frequently presenting at local senior communities for awareness and coordinating with state and local partners to mitigate threats. Thank you so much, Special Agent, for the work that you do to keep our older adults protected. And before we go to our audience questions, I'd like to ask you a few questions to learn about what the FBI is seeing and doing about this problem. And folks, as a reminder, please put any questions for Ken or Sally in the chat during the program, and he will answer them during the Q&A portion, and both of them will answer them during the Q&A portion of our program. So, Ken, would you tell us what is the FBI and what does it do?
Of course. Well, again, thank you so much for having me here today. It's a pleasure to be with you all and to talk about this topic that's affecting so many of our seniors, not only in California, but across the country. And I was happy to see that many people from AARP members are joining this call as well. But as far as what the FBI is, so we are an intelligence-driven and threat-focused national security organization with both intelligence and law enforcement responsibilities. And it is the principal investigative arm of the U.S. Department of Justice and a full member of the U.S. intelligence community. And so the FBI has the authority and responsibility to investigate specific crimes assigned to it and to provide other law enforcement agencies with cooperative services, such as fingerprint ID, laboratory exam, training. The FBI also gathers, shares, and analyzes intelligence, both to support its own investigations and those of its partners, and to better understand and combat the security threats facing the United States. An important one of which is threats of financial crimes against our seniors.
Very complex job. So what is your role at the FBI? Like, what is it that you specifically do? Although
Sure.
I kind of touched on it a little bit in the introduction.
Absolutely. So, as you stated earlier, my role as a special agent is I focus on investigations of federal law pertaining to complex financial crimes. So I work primarily in our criminal investigative division, which I focus on criminal violations of federal law. And so as a result of that, I have investigative casework that I am assigned, and I'm tasked with investigating those violations of federal law. And in addition to that, part of my responsibility is to do outreach to organizations and to communities of elderly individuals to get the word out. So outreach is a big part of what I do, but the bulk of what I do is actually investigating cases and trying to find threat actors, whether they are located here in the United States or abroad.
Thank you. Well, that leads me into, like, we hear about data breaches all the time. Could you explain what is a data breach?
Sure. So to kind of zoom out, what a data breach does is it exposes confidential, sensitive, or protected information to an unauthorized person. There's many different types of data breaches, but in general, data breaches happen due to weaknesses in either technology or user behavior. So anyone can be at risk of a data breach, from individuals to high-level enterprises and governments. More importantly, anyone could put others at risk if they are not properly protected. And so a lot of the data breaches happen because of those two prongs. One, technology, is if a threat actor accesses individuals' PII, their personal identifiable information, through some kind of aggressive attack or through password guessing, and it's more of an aggressive type move. That's more of a technology-based weakness. User behavior, though, is the other part of data breach that is not about like somebody hacking into a system. It is someone who is essentially duped or fooled into sharing their own username and password, their personal identifiable information, in order for the threat actor or the scammer to use that information to compromise the individual's identity, as was shared previously by Sally. So there's a lot of different examples of it. The couple popular ones, the biggest one really, are phishing schemes, and then another one involves malware. But we'll get to more specifics here in just a little bit about that.
All right. Thank you so much. So, you talked about PII. How does that relate to personal data? Is that the same thing, or is it different when you're talking about personal data?
Yes. So Sally gave a great definition of it before. Essentially, based on the Department of Labor, for example, defines PII as information that directly identifies an individual, like name, address, social security number, or other identifying number, code, for example, their telephone number, email address, or by which an agency intends to identify specific individuals in conjunction with other data. And that one's kind of more indirect identification. So that might be a combination of gender, race, birth date, geographic indicator, other descriptors. Additionally, information permitting the physical or online contacting of a specific individual is the same as personally identifiable information. So for example, a unique username that somebody might use to have like a health account or any kind of account online that is unique to that person could be considered PII. So when we speak of personal data and PII, they are essentially the same thing. And this information can be maintained in either paper or electronic or other media. It's not limited to one medium of storage.
Thank you. That makes it much clearer. So what are some of the common scams that affect seniors?
Sure. So there are,
Right.
I'm going to focus more on the ones that are of primary relevance, the ones that I see on a nearly day-to-day, week-to-week basis. These involve confidence scams or con scams, also tech support scams. There's phishing is utilized in both of those things. And then there's also social engineering slash spoofing. So those are the ones that commonly come up in personal data breaches.
Could you tell us what is phishing and social engineering and spoofing?
Sure, of course. So when we talk about phishing, this specifically, it's a type of social engineering attack that's designed to fool a victim into causing one of those data breaches that's based on user error, essentially, or human error. So phishing attackers will pose as people or organizations that you trust in order to easily deceive you. And so criminals of that particular nature, they'll try to coax you into handing over access to sensitive data or provide the data directly to them as a part of that phishing attack. So it can take many different forms. For example, a victim may be targeted by an email or telephone call or text message by someone posing as, again, a legitimate business institution to lure individuals into providing sensitive data, such as PII, or banking, credit card details, usernames, passwords, etc. And so that information is then used by the scammer to attempt to access these important accounts and can result in identity theft, as was discussed before, and then significant financial loss. So, for example, one of the instances of that I frequently see is you'll get emails from, say, Geek Squad or Microsoft or PayPal or any of these institutions that will say your charge has been processed, when in reality all that is an attempt by the scammer, and the email looks pretty legitimate when you first look at it, but that's an attempt by the scammer to get you to provide that PII so that they can utilize that to essentially steal your money and or identity.
Thank you. So would phishing be the same as social engineering? Or is that different?
So phishing is kind of woven into social engineering. So to kind of back up a little bit, social engineering is really the tactic of manipulating, influencing, or deceiving a victim in order to gain control over a computer system or to steal personal and financial information. And it uses a psychological manipulation to trick users into making security mistakes or just giving away their own sensitive information. So, for example, most social engineering attacks rely on actual communication between the scammers and the victim. So the attacker tends to motivate the victim into compromising themselves rather than actually going in and trying to hack your accounts. So that's why it's more the social side of thing. Social part of it is they try to ingratiate themselves into you through frequent and constant contact, gain that trust in order to compromise your own data by providing it to the scammers, not of your free will, but you do so willingly. And so the attack cycle gives these criminals like a reliable process for deceiving you. And that's kind of a little bit more of the social engineering portion of it.
Thank you. So what would spoofing be? I hear the word all the time,
Yes. So spoofing is when a scammer pretends to be someone or something else to win a person's trust. And the motivation, again, is to gain access to systems, steal data, steal money, or spread malware onto your computer. So a few examples specifically of what spoofing looks like is you may get a random call, and the caller ID may imitate a legitimate institution like the California Federal Tax Board or the Federal Reserve Bank or the FBI or Microsoft. And it may actually say that. It also may not say the name. It may say the number, the actual support number of one of those legitimate institutions. But the way that it works is the scammer changes the appearance of their caller ID to look like that number or look like that legitimate institution when it comes up on your phone. So you're like, oh, Microsoft is calling me, or Geek Squad is calling me, or the Federal Tax Board is calling me. And it appears that that's the case, but in reality, all they've changed is the caller ID that comes through when you receive that phone call. The actual number that comes through is kind of hidden in your, it's not hidden, but it's harder to immediately see in your phone settings. You have to actually go into your recent calls, look at that call, see the name, and then the actual number is listed to it. And if you check that and you do that secondary check, it's a number that does not actually belong to those institutions. It's just the caller ID that's been changed. There is one other example too of some spoofing is those emails that I talked about previously that may purport to be from an actual financial institution, let's say Bank of America or JP Morgan Chase, that an individual receives an email saying, you know, your account has been compromised or you have X amount of charges. Call us now at this number to refute or dispute these charges if you didn't make these. And oftentimes scammers will emulate to the closest extent that they can the email address of one of those legitimate institutions. However, what they can't emulate is the secondary part of that email address where, let's say, JP Morgan Chase, they would have @chase.com. They would say JP Morgan Chase, JP Morgan Chase 123 @gmail.com. So, but you have to go to that secondary layer again. If you just look at the name, it would say JP Morgan Chase, for example. But if you hover over and look at the actual full email address, it would not be accurate to an institution's legitimate email address secondarily. So it's kind of those things. You just have to always look beyond that secondary layer. And I love what Sally said earlier about always verifying. If you get a call, hang up, have the script ready. It's okay to be rude. You know, we all want to be nice, but in this day and age, if you're receiving calls from unknown individuals, it doesn't necessarily pay to be nice. You can just hang up and then look up the actual number and call the actual institution. You initiate it after verifying. You don't get initiated upon.
Thank you. That's very good advice. Yeah. So if someone is victimized via the internet, what reporting tool does the FBI recommend?
Sure. So at this point, if we wouldn't mind putting up some of those resources slides, or the resource slide, I will kind of talk through it a bit. So there's 4 main ones. There's a lot of great resources out there. Sally shared a ton of awesome resources at the DFI, and there's FTC and great examples of that. For our purposes at the FBI, we primarily focus on trying to gain victim reports from people who have been victimized or scammed so that we can utilize that in our intelligence gathering to mitigate these threats and to try to connect all of them to the person or people or institution or, you know, threat actors that are at the head of these. First thing is, before all of this, if you feel your life is in immediate danger or there is some kind of immediate threat to you, these are not tools for that. That would be a tool to an instance to call 911 and to get in touch with your local police department. Secondary to that, if you've been victimized by the internet, ic3.gov, as you can see on the screen, is our reporting tool for internet crime, internet-based crime. That is the #1 way that I would recommend above anything else on this particular slide, is if you can get your report to us as soon as possible. And if you have issues with it and you do report it to your local police, they typically will help you do those reports, or they will enter those reports on your behalf if you have technology issues or something's not allowing you to do that. Secondary to ic3.gov, there's a listing of fbi.gov/contact-us/field offices. You can file a report with the duty agent at those field offices during normal working hours, Monday through Friday. And you can file a report with a duty agent and speak with an agent about your scamming. They'll take down your report and put it into our system. And these are kind of in order. So after that, there's some resources that are helpful regarding common scams at the Department of Justice Elder Justice Initiative website, which is justice.gov/elderjustice. And it links to a lot of the great information that was shared previously in this presentation. And then the final one is, if you really have significant issues with technology, or you don't have access to a computer and it's hard for you to file online reports, you can call the Department of Justice National Elder Fraud Hotline. You'll actually get a point person that will intake your report, and they will keep you updated on the status of that report through to having that fulfilled. So that's the number on the screen, 833-372-8311. So those are some of the best resources. But again, ic3.gov is the number one thing that we tell people, because if we don't know about it, we can't track it, we can't trace it, and we can't do anything about it. And just reporting it to your local police doesn't mean it automatically comes to the FBI. There's a secondary step they have to do in order to share that with us. So that's the number one thing that I would drive home, is ic3.gov.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very good to know that if you just report to the police, it's not going to go automatically to the FBI. So thanks for sharing that. So could you talk a little bit about how we can stay safe and what is considered good cyber hygiene,
Of course. So one thing I like to talk about, and it sounds a little bit strange at first, is to watch when you get a random call or random text message and you're speaking with somebody and they're talking about some kind of immediate danger, they're asking you to make rapid money movements, and you sense that really strong emotional reaction, the fear comes up, the anxiety comes up, that's a huge red flag. For those of you that are Star Trek fans, you'll recall the red alert that happens on the Enterprise. That's like those emotions flaring up. That is like your red alert to be like, wait a second, I'm talking to this person on the phone that claims to be from Bank of America, and they're saying that my account has been accessed from all these different countries. I haven't called Bank of America. They're calling me. That worry, that fear that comes up, huge red flag. Really pay attention to that, because that's something that scammers try to utilize, is that emotionality to get you out of your logical processing into a fear and reactionary state. So again, I see somebody even in the chat said, hang up on those calls. Couldn't agree more. Just hang it up. A couple other things that are useful is to create unique passwords for all of your accounts. And there's sometimes I like to really point out there's some logins, like maybe you have a DoorDash account, or maybe you have an account to log in at your like a pet sitting service or something for one of your animals. You may be like, okay, I'm just going to use my common password that I use for this. I would advise against that. I would advise using a very strong and uniquely generated password in whatever form you want to generate that. There are password keeper applications. The iPhone and Apple has one built in. I'm pretty sure Google Android phones have them as well, but there's numerous applications you can get on your phone that create random passwords that are more complex. Do not repeat passwords. The more you repeat passwords, even for those like accounts that you think don't matter, if scammers can access that because your information has been leaked in a data breach on the dark web, they can try to get access to those unimportant accounts, and then they will utilize the information that is in there, like your name, your address, even pet names, which might be used as some security questions somewhere. All of that is important. So use a password keeper of some type if you can, or just create random passwords. Don't repeat. A couple other things. One is, I believe most smartphone ecosystems have a function to silence unknown callers. So if somebody is not in your contact list on your phone that you have entered, it goes right to voicemail, and then it'll pop up later. Just avoid answering phone calls from anyone that you don't know. It's not worth the time. It's not worth the hassle. And the voicemail will still pop up, and you'll be able to check it. And then you can look up the actual support number and call that institution and say, hey, I got this call that they said my account's been compromised. Can you guys verify that? Always verify. You're the one initiating, not being initiated upon. And then there are other, for example, if someone claims to be from one of these legitimate institutions, always verify that legitimacy. But if somebody is from an actual government agency or a legitimate institution, they're not going to be upset that you hang up on them. Or, for example, you close the door on them and say, hey, I don't know who you are. I'm going to call your actual number and verify that. Because truthfully, they're still getting paid. So they don't care. That's their job. And they would want you to verify they are who they say they are, because it lends more legitimacy to the whole interaction. And it shows that you're being aware and that you're not going to be susceptible to a data breach. And so those are a few ways that you can help kind of protect yourself.
Thank you so much, Sergeant Agent Kun. I mean, that's really very great information, great tips that you have provided. And so let's take some questions now from our audience. Marissa, do we have a lot of questions? I just see them coming up in the chat.
We really do. I sent you in the chat some of the questions, and I'm going to add
You want
Sally.
to call people up to unmute themselves?
Yeah, let me. I can go up and grab some of them for you. Let's see, we can just kind of start with. See, so we can kind of start with one of the more recent questions. Lilia Perez, if Lilia wants to come off mute. She had a couple of questions.
Hello.
Hi, Lilia. I know you had a couple questions. One of them was about the dark web.
Yes. What happens when you get a message or your information has been found on the dark web? What should you do?
Right, so I can take this one. So there's a couple things you can do about that. One is there are actual what they call privacy technology management solutions, and the FBI doesn't endorse any of these, but I'll give you a couple examples. One is called Delete Me, and another one is called Opterey, Opterey, I believe. And these are solutions that actually scour the web, and I believe the dark web as well, for some of your information and attempts to remove it for you. So it's more of an aggressive solution. They're paid services, but they can be useful to kind of scrub some of your personal identifiable information that's been leaked on the web and or the dark web. Unfortunately, traditional access points to the dark web are not really available for most people unless they are of a particularly sophisticated nature from a cyber perspective. But the best thing you can do is to use all the tips that we provided before, and then trying to continually have maybe a service that monitors it for you, or you can actively do it yourself. You can go to all these websites that list your name and your address and your phone number on the open web and request an opt-out. Difficulty is there's hundreds and thousands of these, so it kind of gets a little bit laborious. But that is one solution to dealing with that issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There-
Appreciate it.
Great. And let's go to Peter. Is Peter French there? Peter had a question about online payment services. Peter, if you're there, you
Yes.
can. Yeah.
Yeah, my wife was interested in how safe services like Zelle are to use.
So I can answer a part of that, Ken. Maybe you want to chime in afterwards. Thank you so much for your question. That's a very important question, because now more and more, consumers, including even our older adults, are using P2P, P2P payment services and those apps that are on their phones. It's important to note that what you do to protect yourself, they are safe as long as you use it correctly, right? You do not give anybody your PIN number. You initiate the payment service, and you make sure that you know who you're sending the money to on the other end. You are not sending it to somebody you met online. You're not sending it to pay for your electricity, to pay for your taxes, or to even buy, let's say, camping equipment. If they're asking you to send payment out of those normal payment routes, it's probably not a safe way to use it. But if you're sending payment to an uncle across this, in a different state via Zelle, and you have their phone number, you've talked to them, you know their phone number, you know their email, you can confirm it is a safe method of sending payment.
Yes, I would ditto a lot of what Sally said. Great information. And I would also say that if the actual payment service itself is not unsecure, but it can be compromised in all the ways that Sally just outlined. But if you are using it to pay for services, I would be wary of that. If somebody's asking you, hey, can you just Zelle me this, and you don't know who they are, just say, no, do you have an alternative payment method? Can we do this with an actual receipt at a point of sale? I don't want to deal with any Zelle. Or just say, I don't have Zelle. Just say you don't have Zelle. You don't need to disclose what you have and what you don't have. And verifying that point on the other end. If you are sending it to a friend or family member, just double checking and verifying you're sending it to the correct person or place on the other side, because sometimes in the compromisation of data, scammers will imitate known relatives, and they will say, oh, this person interacts with this guy, Uncle John Smith, every single day. And if they get access to your email, and then they will try to imitate that person and say, hey, I'm having problems with my respiratory equipment, and I can't pay my medical bills. Can you just send me a quick couple $1,000s and I'll get you back? Maybe that's normal behavior for you. They can analyze that too if they have access to your emails. And then they try to get in that way. So just be wary of who you're sending it to, and if there's a sudden change of numbers, if you normally will pay them through a particular method, just take a pause, call them on a known number and say, hey, did you just send me a request for this? Always verify. Don't just trust what you're seeing on the screen, particularly if you're not dealing with a person in person.
That's a good point, because once the money is taken out from your Zelle or Venmo account, it's gone. I mean, the bank is not going to refund that. So,
if I
good
can
points.
comment on that, Sarita, that's a great comment. You meant that the bank is not going to refund you, because you have to note that on a P2P payment service like Zelle, you sent the money out. You initiated it. You initiated and you sent somebody the money. Nobody stole the money from you at the beginning of it. So because you authorized this transfer, this payment process to go through, and it's instant. Venmo, Zelle, that payment it's gone immediately. But because you authorized it, the bank say they are not responsible. So again, as Ken mentioned, please confirm you know who you're dealing with, you know who's on the other end, confirm that it is somebody you really want to send the money to. And I've actually done it where if it's a new payment that I'm sending to a friend that I've never sent money to, I will only send $1. I'll send $1, make sure, and I will call them on the phone afterwards and make sure, did you get my dollar, right? To make sure I have the right phone number, the right email before I continue with additional payments.
Very good advice. Yes, thank you.
Well,
I think we have
time for
pretty
one or
much out of
two
time. We
more?
can have a quick question, maybe.
Okay, we have so many questions. I'm sorry, we don't have time to get to them all. Should I just ask the question in the interest of time?
Yes, why not?
We had a question about phishing and social engineering, and asking if would a VPN, a virtual private network, help, as well as virus scans. I don't know if that's in your purview to answer that.
I would say VPN is only going to protect limited amounts of your identity, because all that does is it shields your internet protocol address, basically your address on the web. So it shields where your immediate location is, but truth be told, scammers are not usually concerned about where you are as long as you got money. As long as you have money that they can take, that's their primary concern. I understand people use VPNs just for privacy purposes, and there may be a little bit of an increase of security from like an aggressor, but most scammers don't use aggressive techniques like that. And they aren't sophisticated enough because sadly they make a tremendous amount of money without those sophisticated techniques and without that training. So the VPN, it's not really going to help with that. All the social engineering and stuff kind of speaks to that secondary thing I said, which is the human or user error portion of it, not the technology portion of it, which happens, but is less generally common.
Gotcha. Thanks. And
Thank-
multiple people did ask about the Ticketmaster letter that just came in the mail. I got one too. I haven't even opened it yet. Do you guys know anything about it?
Yes, I just got one last week, I think, saying that they had a data breach, and my information is out there somewhere. So I think it would behoove us all to pay attention to our credit records and all that kind of stuff that we just talked about with Ken and Sally just now.
Yes, I want to comment on that, data breaches happen everywhere, every day, and we're all affected by it. So doesn't matter where we shop, what we buy. So it's actually up to the individual to protect yourself for becoming, a victim of financial scams, fraud, data breach. The more you can protect your personal information, just be careful of, what you do, what information you share, and oversharing. And that's the best way that you're going to be able to protect yourself. Now, we mentioned all these things, and some of it might be scary, but I am going to say most of our information is out there on the dark web. That's just the times that we're living in. So again, it's up to you to protect yourself. Look out for anything that looks out of the norm. If you think something is wrong, follow the steps that we've given you, that we've mentioned. Again, I'll go ahead and put up some of the slides. If somebody's rushing you and something doesn't sound right, or if it sounds too good to be true, remember, stop, look, and think before you click, tap, send money to somebody you don't know who's on the other end.
Thank you, Sally. That's really a good tip, for sure. As we say at AARP, if you can spot a scam, you can stop a scam. So we're almost up for time now, and this has been a very helpful and information-packed conversation. But we're at closing time, and I would like to thank my special guest, Sally Westlake, with the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, and FBI Special Agent Agent Kun for sharing their time and advice today. I want to thank AARP staff, especially Marissa, for helping us manage the questions and all the background work that she's done for us. And of course, all of you, I want to thank all of you for joining our conversation today, sharing your comments and asking your questions. I hope you found some interesting and helpful tips, and that you join us next week for another interesting conversation on imposter and cryptocurrency related frauds and scams. Please visit us at https://states.aarp.org/California, and I think that link will be put in the chat very soon. And in the meantime, if you have any questions about fraud, please contact our AARP Fraud Watch Network at 877-908-3360. You can also visit us online at aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network. Again, I'm Sarita Cardozo, your AARP volunteer host. Thank you all so much for joining us today. This concludes our program.
Thank you.